If you're attending the WisDOT Good Faith Effort session, you're in the right place. Thank you for being here. My name is Tim Alston, and I'm a compliance specialist for WisDOT Southwest Regional Madison office. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions, I ask you to please type them in the Q&A chat box. I'll read the questions towards the end of the session. I will provide a link in the chat box to this session's evaluation and ask you to take a few minutes to complete it before going to the next agenda session. Okay, so now without further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenter for this session and the panelists. The presenter is Kathleen Panank. Kathleen has been with WisDOT since March of 2020, first working in the Southeast Region's real estate unit, and then transferring to OBOC in April of 2021, where she now is a good faith effort analyst. Prior to WisDOT, Kathleen has worked in multiple areas involving residential real estate, commercial real estate, ground-up construction, and corporate risk management. She lives in Milwaukee County on the North Shore with her husband and 3 daughters. Our 2 panelists are Julie Reamer and Amy Hecker. So I'll turn it over to you, Kathleen.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tim, for that introduction. And as Tim said, my name is Kathleen Panank. I am the GFE analyst in the OBOC region for the Dbe office. And what we plan on doing for this presentation is I'm going to go through a PowerPoint that you see on screen. I'm going to share that with everybody. I'm going to go off camera as we go through the PowerPoint presentation, and then we're going to come back, and I'm going to be joined with Julie and Amy, and we're going to go through a panel discussion. And Tim will keep an eye out for the chat. If there are any questions, we'll kind of address those as we go along. And with that being said, I'm going to go off camera right now, and we'll start going through the PowerPoint presentation that I have prepared. So I am going to start. I thought a great place to start was just showing what our GFE stats are at the moment. And as you can see, I have the fiscal year 2021 stats and our current stats, which are through February 2022. Fiscal year 2021, we were at 50 GFE requests, and those are counted as approved GFE requests. At this point through February 2022, we're at 24 approved GFE requests. I also put the region statistics on this page, and you can just kind of take a look at those, how they compare to this year, last fiscal year to this fiscal year. And, those are always important things that we take a look at as we're looking at, where these GFE requests are coming from, and trying to dig a little bit deeper in understanding, what we can do on a going forward basis. Late last year, in I believe it was November of 2021, I introduced the DT1202 Excel Workbook. And this is meant to be a prime contractor tool to organize and document your good faith efforts. So this is not a requirement, but we're hopeful that most prime contractors are going to embrace this workbook, as we feel it does give a good basis of organization, especially with the table of contents, and a way to document your efforts, that makes sense. And just a brief overview of each of the tabs. I'll start with the Solicitation tab. And you may or may not have the DT1202 form in front of you, but this tab is meant to consolidate categories 1, 2, and 3 of the DT1202. This consolidates the type of solicitation that you're putting out there, whether it be an email, a letter, SBN posting, a publication with the Daily Reporter or on your website. Also within that solicitation on that second page, most solicitations have the selected work items that you're looking for on the proposals, and then also that project information, the plans and specs, and other information for the DBEs, such as when quotes are due for that particular bid letting. So that is the reason why that solicitation tab does combine all three of those items. We then have the negotiation and assistance tab. This is items or categories 4 and 6 on the DT 1202. And again, in the upper portion of that tab is for negotiation efforts that you have, both with DBEs, and sometimes those negotiations can come in the form of speaking with the WisDOT subcontractors, encouraging that DBEs are used and DBE suppliers are used as well within their quotes. And then any assistance that you're able to give DBEs, for this particular bid letting, if those questions come your way. The sound reasoning and intent to award tab, that's number 5 on the DT 1202. And I'll go into a little bit more detail with another slide when we come to that. And then just the DBE outreach tab, which is number 7. One of the things that I encourage prime contractors, if they're going to use this workbook, is to keep a template and fill in as much information as possible, that always is going to carry over from GFE request to GFE request. And thinking about your outreach tab, this is a great area where, you're able to keep track of all the different types of outreach that you're doing and kind of update that as the year goes on. So just think about that. And, if you are going to be utilizing this, that's something to develop within your company. We always recommend that you're always using the most current version of the UCP DBE directory. That does get updated about twice a month. And something new that we started at the beginning of this year with January is that we are putting out a monthly update. So please feel free to always check the web page where the UCP directory is maintained, and the updates that you'll see are very inclusive. It ranges from a DBE having new contact information, DBEs that are no longer in business, expansion of their NAICS code, and that type of thing. So it's a very useful tool, and so I encourage all prime contractors to check that out. And then also, just a side note for any prime contractors that also bid BOA work, BOA is now using the same version of the DT 1202 form. It pretty much matches exactly what you've been used to. Their form is just labeled something different. It's the 550C. But if you do have a GFE request with BOA, I would just encourage you to just keep doing what you're doing if you're bidding on highway work, and then you'll be in a good position. And you can certainly also use the DT 1202 workbook for those BOA efforts as well. And let's see. So next slide. I just wanted to introduce a new sample. This is a sample email to WisDOT subcontractors. In looking at the GFE requests throughout the state, I see this as an area of opportunity for some prime contractors who aren't currently doing this or do not do this on a routine basis, is also develop an email. I see some prime contractors use letters, but also to reach out to those WisDOT subcontractors and let them know that your expectation is that they too will solicit and utilize DBEs in the quotes. Those DBEs can come in the form of the suppliers, subcontractors, trucking firms. if there's an opportunity to untie an item in the quote, that you would encourage them to do that so a DBE could be utilized. And, last but not least, that their quote is going to be evaluated on how much DBE participation they're able to provide. So for any prime contractors that are, maybe not doing that on a routine basis, I encourage you to, develop an email or a letter that can be sent, with each bid letting as well. And then this again is a sample email solicitation. Again, it's just kind of breaking down some of the information that's typically seen in the solicitation letter and putting that in, on the, in the email itself. As you can see, I mean, I feel bullet points are kind of a great way to present the information that's very informational. I encourage you, in taking a look at any of these examples to, make it your own within your own company and, use it as a place to, market your company of why you're a good DBE partner, the experience that you have on WisDOT projects and, and that type of thing. And so our next slide, again, for you may have seen this already. I did send this out over, I believe it was over sometime in December. And I did, again, present this at our January session. But this is a reformatted version of the solicitation letter. Again, it kind of looks at the current solicitation letter that's in there, that's contained in ASP3 currently, and it breaks it up into question and answer format. It's also reimagined a little bit as a newsletter. There's if you wanted to, if any prime contractors wanted to, you could put some statistics in here of, what your DBE participation has been like over the past year, past couple of years. What are the high points that you want to highlight with your DBE participation? And I have recently seen a prime contractor use this example. I thought, it really looked great. And so, again, this is just an example, and definitely encourage, if you are going to, take a moment to reformat your solicitation letter to really make it your own and, promote your company of why you're a great DBA partner on WisDOT projects. And then second page, just as important, this is breaking down the selected work items for per proposal, and we definitely encourage prime contractors to really break that down for the DBEs. Sometimes, I can see that, there's no X's, so it gives the impression that all of these work types are available, or proposals will have everything marked, giving the impression that all work types are available. And if that's the case, that's great. But if it's not the case, you want to make sure that you're really working with the project manager and identifying those opportunities that really are available per proposal. And then circling back to the intent to award, demonstrating good faith with sound reasoning. In the DT 1202 workbook, I do have this reminder there, just a reminder that, another practice considered insufficient good faith is the rejection of a DBE because their quotation was not the lowest received. So we are really putting an emphasis on prime contractors when you're completing the intent to award, to look at the, to give us reasoning of why a particular DBE is being rejected, outside of it being strictly based on cost, and not having that as the only reason. There is now a quote analysis tool in the DT 1202 workbook, and this is a tool for prime contractors to use so they can understand both the dollar difference between two quotes and as well as the percentage difference. And so I give an example, sawing quotes sometimes come in close to each other. These $2 differences, it's 19% higher. However, it's only $578 apart. So really considering what that total impact is on the increased cost when making your final awarding decision. And I also did provide a sample, a completed sample, and consider printing that out, if it's helpful to whoever is completing this. So there's more of a reminder of what we're looking for when you're making those final awarding decisions. ASP3, it's anticipated that it's going to go into effect for the May 2022 bid letting, and we are going to be introducing a new GFE rubric and scoring assessment. So we definitely feel as though that there's been significant progress since the rubric has been introduced, that's been made over the past year with GFEs overall. And I've worked hard to create a lot of resources for primes so that they're really well positioned to understand what is actually required under the regulation in the DT 1202, as well as how to organize those efforts in those documents. So with this new change, we're looking to transition more to targeted based feedback. And earlier this week, we had a great focus group with industry. So along with some prime contractor industry feedback, we're developing a more simplified version of the rubric that takes the existing rubric and it just puts it into, or it's organized into the 8 categories. And I will be showing a sample of it in just a moment. This example is still in draft format, but we definitely expect the rubric to be substantially similar to the example provided. I think there are definitely some more tweaks that are needed. And a very important note and a concern that was brought up at the focus group, the same documents and submission process prime contractors are currently providing is not changing. This is not meant to move the goalposts in any way, shape, or form. This is really meant to, simplify the efforts because there has been such a great effort with the prime contractors and what they're doing as far as GFE submission if it is needed. The simplified version does incorporate the color coding rating system, and it's really designed to highlight that targeted feedback that aligns directly with the 1202 categories onto one page. And then we are still keeping them a more detailed analysis that you're used to as far as what the bid analysis looks like and what rejected DBE quotes and the quotes awarded, that'll still be provided on an additional page. So without further ado, this is what we are proposing going to. So again, this aligns, similar to the previous rubric. We're seeing the categories that coincide with the DT 1202. And this provides the next column is examples. It, again, provides language from the DT 1202. And right here is going to be the rating, and all 8 categories are going to be color coded. So it's either going to be a green, a yellow, or a red, and directly on the rubric itself will be the feedback. So we feel that this feedback that directly correlates to the DT 1202 hopefully will be very useful to prime contractors. And the rating system that we're looking at is on the second page. We're kind of going in between 2 options at the moment, but the thing that's the same is 5 or more categories, color-coded green or yellow, would be an approval, and 4 or less would be a denial. If you look at the option below, red, we're considering, kind of 2 versions of an approval. 6 or more categories, color-coded green would also be an approval, but that's also giving some much needed recognition to the prime contractors who are really doing a great job at, everything that they're doing with their GFE requests. The red, we're looking at labeling areas of attention or absence of documentation. And, if you're seeing that, if that comes back to you, it's a note for you to, take special notice of this particular category and really look at that feedback with the expectation, that there is going to be some improvement. And, as always, I'm, here to answer any questions as far as GFEs are concerned. So, if that does come your way or there's feedback that you don't quite understand, just make sure, always feel free to reach out to me. I'm a phone call away, I'm an email away, and I always want to make sure that, you're in the best position possible as far as, completing a GFE request if it's needed. However, meeting the goal is, obviously, what we want, but this is an option as well. And last but not least, and I know on a previous session, Madalena touched upon this, neutral participation. This is really important. This is another way that we are, that we reach our goal each year. And right now we are in the second year of our triennial goal of 12.41%, which we exceeded by 2.16% for fiscal year 2021, which was great. And we definitely want to keep that momentum going. Fiscal year 2021, we had over 20 million plus in commitments after contract execution. So this is really important. And it really helps us meet the goal, but also the benefit, this collective effort that happens with all the prime contractors who are consistently doing this, this consistent routine, timely completion of the neutral participation, this can potentially translate into lower DBE goals at the beginning of fiscal year 2023. So, that's always something to look forward to. So we just ask that you continue to do that because the regulation does require that we meet this overall goal with as much neutral participation as possible. So that is it. I have, as always, resources. Go to our webpage. There are some more developments going on our webpage, so I encourage everybody to check that out. And my contact information, Madalena's contact information is there. Again, please always feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And don't be afraid to think outside of the box when it comes to GFE effort. Even small efforts can be just as impactful as these very big efforts, such as like creating a website. These smaller efforts to count. And just don't feel, always feel free to think outside the box. So I just want to leave everybody with that thought before we get to our panel discussion, which I am going to come on camera now, unless anybody has any questions at this point on anything that I presented.
Kathleen,
Yes.
I do not see any questions regarding the presentation.
All right. Okay, let me just figure out how to come back on camera here. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. All right. Well, I would like now to bring in our two panelists, Julie Reimer from Vinton Construction Company and Amy Hacker from White Buffalo Trucking. And I just wanted to, start with with a discussion regarding, things that are challenging and maybe things that are helpful leading up to bid submission. And Julie, starting with you, thinking about the time period between bid lettings, what could you add or what could you help us with as far as things that you found on the prime contractor side?
Yeah, well, first of all, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to be part of this discussion. As far as challenges and help, things that are either helpful or challenging, I would have to say, about 2 to 3 weeks prior to the letting, once we've decided on what projects we're going to be either bidding or quoting, we will typically send out an initial email to all of our DBEs that are on our solicitation list, and then usually follow up with phone calls to those DBEs if we have not received a response from them. And that usually happens about a week prior. So I believe the girls in the front office might even be making those calls as we speak. I think making the phone calls can be a very time-consuming part of the process. And I think that something that could be helpful to the primes would be if you're a DBE and if you have received an email from a prime asking for quotes, to even just respond to that email and say, hey, yeah, no, there's nothing that you're bidding on that we're interested in quoting, or yeah, absolutely, we'll send our quote over via email or whatever. That would reduce the amount of phone calls that we would make as a follow-up. So that would just be something that would be helpful if DBEs have it. And I know everybody is extremely busy when it comes to the bidding process. So I understand that, and time sometimes kind of slips away. So, but any effort that could be made to respond to those emails would be great. And I think, as far as challenges leading up to the bid letting, I think that Vinton Construction, now I've been with Vinton for about 3 years now in this area of construction. From past conversations and now being, in it, I would say that, we've always taken our DBE goals very seriously. And some of the challenges that I know we have had is some of the DBEs that were in the program have graduated out of the program. They've either, expanded their business to a point where they don't need to be on the DBE list anymore or on the UCP directory. And so therefore they're removed, but then some of those DBEs don't get replaced. Like I know that we've lost traffic control and electrical contractors that work in certain areas of the state. So that when we are bidding on those projects, sometimes DBE goals are hard to meet if the projects are heavy with those work types. So if it's a large electrical, if there's a lot of electrical on it, or if, obviously traffic control is involved in every, bid or quote. If we don't have DBEs that are willing to quote maybe in the Appleton area or up north, if there isn't, they're not willing to quote that far, then it's sometimes hard to meet those goals. So I would say that's kind of been challenging. So.
Okay. Yeah, and just to follow up, Julie, you bring up a point about follow-up phone calls, and just something to think about, for any prime contractor who's listening in. If that's an activity that's not resulting in more DBE participation, possibly limit the scope in some ways, such as, if it's a project that's very heavy in 2 or 3 different work types, concentrate only on those DBEs with follow-up phone calls. The goal of all of this activity that primes are undertaking with a GFE request, obviously is to increase DBE participation. It's not meant to, be a check the box activity because you did it on a GFE request. We really want this to be impactful. So we always encourage primes to look at past efforts and maybe readjust that solicitation strategy, if you will, going forward for future bid lettings. So just, always keep that in mind. So, in thinking about, the challenges maybe leading up to, or thinking about challenges primes face during or after the bid letting process, what types of things could you share, Julie, on your end as far as the prime contractor perspective?
Sure. I mean, the morning of the letting is a very busy time. I think all primes, and actually DBEs and subcontractors that are quoting can all attest to. And so receiving last minute quotes, either from a DBE or from a subcontractor, when the bids are due at 11 and we don't receive quotes until 10:30 in the morning, or whatever it might be, that can change, what we've got submitted on our DT 1506. So when you have to provide that information at the time of bid, 15 minutes before the bid is due, you might be having to change that information on the DT 1506. Now, Ashtaware has come up with obviously some helps in that regard, if that's how I want to say it, but in that you can do it online. You don't have to fill out the paperwork and upload the paper anymore. Now it can all be done online. The 60%, if you're using a supplier, is calculated automatically. I mean, there's been a lot of improvements for sure. And, but that is probably kind of a challenge at the last minute when you're getting quotes at the very last minute. And I mean, as far as after the bid letting process, obviously, if we don't meet a goal, the goal is to meet the goal. I mean, that's, we all want to meet the goal. But in the event that you aren't meeting the goal, and you're bidding 4 to 6 projects, say half of those you don't meet the goal. Now there are 2 to 3 good faith efforts that you need to submit. And there's a lot of paperwork that's involved with that, obviously. I think that Vinton does a really good job with being very organized and keeping track of all their paperwork. But at the same time, after the bid is over, we need to sit down with project managers or people that were in the bid room to discuss, okay, what happened? Why are we using this subcontractor and not this subcontractor? And all that needs to be filled in and mapped out and then needs to be submitted before 11 o'clock the next morning. So I would say that can be a challenge because you're trying to make sure your paperwork is in order because, of course, if we do have to submit a good faith effort, we want it approved. So we want to make sure that our paperwork and our notes and everything are accurate so that you get a clear picture of what happened leading up to it. And obviously, once the state letting is over, there are municipality bids that primes are bidding on as well. So it's not just, so it's tough sometimes to try to get that paperwork compiled and then shift gears to try to work on bids for municipalities that you might be bidding the next day as well. So I guess that would be a challenge for good faith.
Yes, no, I understand. Thank you for that. And Amy, definitely want to pull you into the conversation here. What are your thoughts on, from the DBE perspective on what you face before, during and after a bid letting?
Well, hi everybody. I'm Amy from White Buffalo Trucking. As a DBE, the bid letting usually is, and on my end, I kind of drag my feet till the last minute. I'm one of your last minute DBE people. Some of it comes to the fact that I'm looking at where I am in my trucking schedule, where my trucks are at, how far out that project is going to be, so I know where my trucks are going to be, and if I'm able to actually supply trucks. And on my end, I should be letting you know where we're at and what we're doing or what I'm thinking to kind of help you guys move along. But I think some of it comes down to I'm not always in the office when these bid lettings are coming in. And sometimes I'm just sending back a quote without an attachment A. And then at, 10:15 on a bid day, they want to sign attachment A's. And I don't have one. So I got to go searching for one either, on the internet or hope they can send me one quick so I can fill it out on my phone or whatever I need to do to get it back to them in a timely manner so that they can submit it in a timely manner. And I think that's one of them. And then some of the other stuff is just, I think it's more of the whole trying to figure out the scheduling of the trucks, trying to figure out where we're going to go and how to do that, because I'm not always aware, like I say, I'm not always aware of the scheduling process, and I don't want to put myself in a position where I can't provide to the prime, or the prime has to send something to you saying we pulled out, or they don't have the DBE goal because we weren't able to commit to that project. And I don't ever want to be in a position where I can't be trusted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's always important to remember, primes to remember that DBEs are, sometimes small businesses. They wear many different hats. They sometimes don't have the staff that a prime contractor has. And, just to keep that in mind when you're communicating. Yes, it's crazy on bid day, but, trying to make it, as convenient as possible in what you're communicating and the documentation that you're providing. I think those are always good thoughts or good things to keep in mind. And I do see that we have a question from Sarah Janisek. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Sarah. Sarah is from SJ Landscaping, and she has a quick question. How can we, as a DBE subcontractor, reassure ourselves that our submitted bids were given proper consideration as it relates to Prime's good faith efforts? Thank you. Julie, I don't know if you want to, if you have any immediate thoughts, just from the prime contractor perspective, regarding that question. I can maybe add some things, but I'll start with you first before
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to say, generally speaking, I mean, all quotes that we receive, we consider.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I can say, as far as from a DOT standpoint, I mean, on a Friday, I am putting together a sub-compare for our project managers to plug all those numbers in. So there's categories, landscaping in this case, traffic control, whatever it might be. And they are plugging all those numbers in, and they are doing a comparison across the board. It doesn't just depend on the numbers. It also depends on, was it a complete package that was submitted, that sort of thing. So, I mean, I can't speak for all primes,
sure,
but I feel like I can confidently say that any quotes that come through here, they are being filtered to all of the proper channels, and they are being reviewed and put into, like I said, a sub-compare that they can compare all pricing and all quotes that we've received per work type.
Okay, it sounds good. And what I would add to that as well, in something that Madalena has discussed in previous meetings, and I know that she even discussed it today at her workshop, is for primes. And I don't put this all on primes. DBEs can do the same, to either reach out to the prime or prime reach out to the DBE if the quote is not used after the bid letting, and to maybe go through the quote and give some reasons why this time around the quote was not awarded, and maybe in a similar project coming up at a future bid letting, maybe the next month bid letting, possibly what the DBE could do, could have done differently, or the rationale behind it, because I think that's really important feedback that DBEs should receive, and on the quotes that they're providing. So hopefully that answers your question, Sarah. I don't know if you had any further follow-up. Okay, I haven't. Okay, I think we can move on. But Sarah, if that doesn't answer your question, please feel free to circle back.
I was just going to add to that a little bit, Kathleen.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
We did, when we had met earlier in the week, we did discuss that a little bit too, as a DBE, not knowing why, after we put out a bid, I sign probably in the first couple of months, or, January, February, March, I sign a lot of attachment A's that go out, and I don't hear back from them unless they're going to use me. And sometimes it's right away, and sometimes it's not until the job starts. But when I put out a bid for a project, say if I did a bid to Vinton, and Vinton gets the project but doesn't use me, I would like the feedback to know what it was that steered them away from using us, so I have a more competitive edge to try to get into to figure out what we can do to get into good graces with it, and have a better partnership with them.
Absolutely. And I think that is an important thing for primes to keep in mind. It is busy, the bid letting's over with, you're awarded the project. I know that you're moving on to other things. But I think that could be an important, follow-up step in your process, within this whole process. And that is something that, as there's more communication between primes and DBEs and understanding, what, the competitive nature of this business, I think that's only going to, drive more DBE participation actually, or increase more DBE participation, which means meeting the goal and not needing a GFE request. So definitely encourage that going forward. Okay, so thinking about, as we're kind of discussing this, I think this brings up another good point of, when should prime contractors notify DBEs that the DBE has been included on the prime's bid? And I think this is going to vary across the board on, each company's process and procedure. But we would encourage, from the DOT standpoint and, being a DBE support office, we would encourage that prime contractors have a process to communicate with DBEs, kind of ASAP. Ideally, when we look at, when we look at this process, prime contractors should, we would encourage prime contractors to have an internal process to reach out to all DBEs who are included on the DT12, who are included on the 1506. So, at bid time, you've made the decision to award, these particular DBEs, that you would at least have a process in place to make that announcement. Or email those DBEs that they have been included. So come 12 noon on Tuesday, if you're read as low, at least those DBEs have an understanding at that point that potentially they're going to be in on that project if it moves forward and ultimately awarded by Bureau of Project Development. One area, and I know that there was a workshop today, navigating the HCCI website. This is, I think, a great area of opportunity to, for both primes, obviously primes are aware of this, but DBEs to also educate yourself on where to check that the proposal status. And the proposal status is updated after the bids are actually awarded, but not all bids get awarded like immediately after. There's other reasons why a bid would not be awarded, and the proposal status is updated throughout the month. And keep in mind, for example, there's a couple of proposals from December that aren't awarded yet. So sometimes this does go on for several weeks, but we definitely encourage DBEs to understand where this proposal status is updated. And this is also, this can also be a great opportunity for prime contractors to, provide that extra assistance to DBEs. I understand that the HCCI website is not the most easy website to navigate. But if you spend some time in learning how to do it, or if a prime contractor maybe wants to develop kind of like a helpful hints part of their webpage, this is a great opportunity to, kind of provide that additional assistance, especially to newer DBEs. Okay, so any other questions at this point? I see something in the chat from Karen Kruger. In order not to work, we need to have details.
I can actually answer that one for you, Kathleen.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, go ahead.
So her question is basically, circling back to me, saying that we're overcommitting or not knowing if we're overcommitting. And I don't know, we had discussed a little bit in the beginning on a session before with Craig Clemens. It was like the communication and being at the at the meetings, and I was saying how, like, us with trucks, we we start on a project and then we're there till the end. Like, we're not spaced out. Like, we have to wait for the water crew to come in. We have to wait for electrical or anything like that. But there's times when the trucks aren't needed to be used, that sometimes having that estimated start date and having like when the trucks, because there might be times where they ain't going to need trucks for 2 weeks while they are letting something settle or waiting for the water to, the pipes to be put in or whatnot. Sure. That would be helpful for us as it gets us so we can find other work for those trucks for 2 weeks. Otherwise, we're scrambling the last minute trying to figure it out, and then it just becomes kind of stressful for us and probably just puts a bad taste in our mouth. But at the same time, it's just, we don't want to overcommit our trucks and always look like, just look like idiots not knowing what we're doing with our trucks.
Right. So communication, and finding a good way. Again, every prime contractor company is going to be different. What the internal process looks like, but definitely from what I'm hearing, just from both is that, especially for DBEs, to be included in that conversation and included, maybe if there is a meeting happening, to be included in those, initial meetings of when the scheduling is expected to take place. I mean, obviously we're in Wisconsin and different things can happen with weather and there's other setbacks that can happen, but to keep the DBEs, in the loop, as you would with all the other subcontractors involved with the project. Any further questions here? I just want to check to make sure that we're where we're at with time as well. Thinking about mentor protege for a moment, Julie, I know that your company is involved with mentor protege, and I was just wondering if you could provide some thoughts on that, of how that has impacted your company, and anything more that you can share.
Well, I mean, first of all, being part of the mentor protege program, it's given Vinton Construction an opportunity to have a closer one-on-one connection with our protege, and with a subcontractor that we have worked with for years. We have met with them. Usually it's right after the letting, but of course now with things being so busy, it gets a little chaotic. So we try to meet at least a couple times a quarter for sure. It was monthly there for a while, but anyway, we've kind of, just in conversations, we've learned that there are struggles that DBEs are, face, that being that they're a smaller company in a very large industry. There are, obviously subcontractors out there that have been around for a while, and DBEs are trying to make a name for themselves and become involved and really have put their stamp on things. So I know that, just in the relationship we've developed with our protege, we've seen them grow. I mean, obviously, I've only been with Vinton for a few years, but I can say just with past conversations I've had, with John Strew, who used to be the DBE officer here at the company, he's seen the growth in their business. They've grown in size. They're developing additional scopes of work. They have reached out to us and asked for our thoughts and advice on where to improve their paperwork trail, just stuff like that. So, I mean, it's been enlightening, I think, for both.
Good.
Develop the relationship.
Absolutely. Good. That's good to hear. And let's see here. Okay. Well, that is great, and I encourage any of the primes who are listening right now to consider the mentor protege program. I think it is really one of the great initiatives that the DBE office has started, and there's just such benefit to both, and especially seeing the growth with a DBE firm who can, capitalize on that, knowledge that a prime contractor might have in a lot of different areas. And, because DBEs, sometimes, not all, but sometimes are smaller businesses, it's hard to wear all of those different hats to understand, all the different things, that have, that quite literally have, don't have anything to do with what you're actually doing out there, on our projects, maybe such as insurance or accounting or, those types of things, or, how to market yourselves and, how to, build on the success that you're having, getting involved with each project that you're involved with. So thank you for sharing those thoughts on mentor protege.
Mm-hmm.
Is there, thinking about outreach, and this is a question for both Amy and Julie, just, the outreach, what do you think can be improved upon, that, that is impactful, that will make a difference, and as far as, maybe what a prime can do, and then Amy, as a DBE, what you would think is important, maybe especially for a newer DBE just coming into, a WisDOT, into the WisDOT project work.
I know one of the questions, there was just a question before that would ask about if you're already a DBE, reaching out to the primes in general, letting them know that you're out there and like that you're available for certain projects, or if the project's nearby, letting them know that you're there, because sometimes, like Julie said, they don't know when these new DBEs come in. So if there's never anybody saying, hey, I'm here, like I'd be willing to work for you, work with you, give us a call. This is what we do. This is our scope of work, and this is what we can provide for you. They're never going to know. I think a lot of times DBEs, when they become certified.
Excuse me, Kathleen. Sorry to
yes.
cut in here, but we have less than 9 minutes to go.
Got you. Okay. All right. Thank you, Tim, for that time check.
So I think sometimes when they become certified, we hear like, oh, become a DBE and you'll get all this work. And I think they just think they can sit back and all that work's going to fall right into their lap.
Mm-hmm.
But they have to take the initiative themselves and call these companies and let them know that they're out there.
Absolutely.
And, and there's these conferences, whether it's virtual or live, to take the time to come and do them, to get in front of the primes, because otherwise they're never going to know they're there or what they're able to do.
Absolutely. That is very valuable. So for any DBEs that are sitting in on this conference, I would really take heed of Amy's advice here. She shared with me that she has been coming to these conferences, and it definitely has resulted in, valuable partnerships that has equated into, business for her company. So these are really great opportunities, and I know tomorrow will be another equally good opportunity for those attending in person to really make those personal connections. So thank you for sharing that. I want to go now to, I just want to make sure, Tim, if you can help me out here, looking at the chat, or if there's any other questions that have come our way.
We have a question from KK, Karen Krieger.
Yeah.
Question: I recommend I recommend mentor protege programs for all DBEs. It was very helpful to get to know your industry and learning how to advance your company. So another thumbs up for mentor protege.
Awesome. Well, that is great to hear. Let's see. And I see that Madalena has answered Tony's question. And there's a question here from Stan. I just want to read through this first.
It looked like Madalena already answered Stan's question.
Okay.
Too.
Okay. Got it.
Madalena's on the ball over there.
She is. Thank you, Madalena, for helping me out here.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Where are we with time here? We have about 6 minutes left.
Yep.
Trying to think if there's any parting thoughts here, as far as GFE is concerned. Maybe one further question that I have for Julie, just kind of circling back to the DT 1202 workbook, for those primes who maybe haven't taken the plunge yet and delved into it. Do you have any thoughts that you can share, and how that's maybe helped your efforts as far as submitting those requests?
Yeah, you know, I have to say, and I think we talked about this in a previous session, Vinton has been fortunate enough that I have not had to submit the workbook. We've been able to meet the goal, which is wonderful. Like I said, that's the whole point. But I do have to say that all of the information that we have always provided in the past for our good faith efforts is basically everything that you are asking for, but having the workbook keeps it in one central location and keeps it very organized. You know, the outreach information, you know, as you discussed in your PowerPoint, you know, the outreach information that literally can just get carried over from month to month to month. You're not retyping that information in. You know, so, you know, obviously the work is the same, but having it being in one central organized location is very beneficial per project.
So. Definitely. Yes. And for any prime contractors who are listening in and have any further questions regarding the workbook, or, you know, maybe they don't know where to place some information or whatnot, I'm always here to answer any questions, have a short mini one-on-one session if necessary. So don't ever hesitate to reach out to me again, you know, either by email or by phone. We can talk through it. So I just want to always put that out there, and just want to understand if there's any further questions. I know that we're kind of coming up to the end of our session here, but want to make sure that I'm addressing any further questions that anybody might have.
I did want to just jump back in there and say, some of the other things that might be helpful for DBEs is I think the resources need to be as simple as possible. Plenty of the DBEs are one-man operations, or their husband and wife operations, where the wife actually works outside the home, you know, as a small business, and they're trying to grow. They don't have the ability to take the time for these virtual conferences and or show up for these conferences. But at the same time, they need to get as much information as they can on how to be a successful DBE or how to promote themselves. And I think sometimes going through some of the websites, or, you know, the DOT website is a little all over the place, and we just don't really know what we're doing wrong to get things through. And, you know, so having simple resources, I think, would be beneficial to a lot of the smaller DBEs just starting out.
Yeah, and that is a great point, and I'll put a plug into our new Dbe support pages that are being developed just this month. For any DBEs that are listening in on this session, I encourage you to take a look at the Dbe webpage. We have some great resources that are going to be developed, and I know Madalena touched on that on a previous session with her workshop. But there will be some further workshops in the fall that I believe will be helpful to DBEs. So we are really looking to build that into a really good resource for DBEs to come to, especially when they're starting out. So, and I think that's an important point, again, that you're making, Amy, about, you know, being a small business and having to navigate some, you're navigating, you know, both federal regulation, state regulation. You know, it's not always easy. And but I think if you're willing to make that effort, and with the support that we're able to provide, hopefully that translates into, you know, successful businesses, and that's what we're, you know, here to support.
All right, Kathleen, would you like to go through anything else before we wrap up for the day?
No. I see that Stan has a further question about the address of the Dbe webpage, and I can certainly provide that. I don't know if I should provide it in chat real quick. I have to there we go. Whoever was that, Madalena, who provided that? Yes. Thank you, Madalena, once again.
Where would we be without Madalena?
I know.
Yeah.
And then Sarah, thank you. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Was there one more question from Sarah there?
Yeah, she provided some good feedback. Thank you, Sarah, for fantastic conversation. I know everybody was hesitant about the workbook, but thank you for taking the plunge. And she's just offered some advice or some feedback that it helped her be more organized and have better conversations for good outreach opportunities. So thank you, Sarah, for providing that feedback. That's good to hear.
All right. Are we ready to wrap things up?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. We appreciate you being here. Please go to the chat box and click the evaluation link for this session. Always remember to visit the exhibitors and the lounge to network with the other attendees. Much thank you again for participating in this session. So we'll be seeing you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. And thank you, Julie and Amy, for being
Thank
my
you.
panelists.
That's right.
And Tim, thank you.
You all three did a knockout job, so thank you very much.
All right. All right.
All your preparation did well, Kathleen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, how was it?
Yeah.
How was it? It's hard when I'm on this end trying to go through my thoughts.
I know. I really I thank you both. I think it was really valuable to have kind of the prime and the DBE perspective, and I'm glad that just kind of came together in this virtual format too. So
Absolutely. Thank you
yeah.
again for the opportunity. I was glad to be a voice, and so nice to meet you, Amy, and look forward to working with all of you. So
do we get to see you tomorrow, Julie?
I will not be able to come. Actually, we've got 9 projects we're involved with the state letting on Tuesday, and 3 private bids also on Tuesday that we have to submit. And being away from the office all day tomorrow will be
busy.
Might be too much.
Right.
So, yep. So hopefully next year I'll be able to see you all in person.
Well, good. Yeah. Well, I will be there tomorrow, and Amy, I think you will be there. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll be here.
Okay. Well, good.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. There will be 2 individuals that will be there tomorrow. John Strew will be there, as well as Jeff Schwecke, who is our controller and EEO officer here at the company.
Okay.
And so they will be there for any sort of meet and greets tomorrow. So
we're you guys are still on hot mics.
Hot mics.
We didn't do anything weird, so we should be okay.
Yeah, I think we're okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
You have a nice day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a great evening, all.
Thank you.
You too, Tim.
Bye-bye.